Hello friends, today we're going to talk about how onions are harvested and processed in a factory. At first, they began to cut off the tip of the onion tree with a machine. Then comes the harvester to pull the onions out of the ground. The job of the harvesters is to pull the onions out of the ground and cut down the excess trees. After harvesting the onions from the ground, it is time to collect the onions from the field. A tractor, together with a truck, comes to collect the onions from the field. A machine attached to the tractor only collects onions from the field and throws the excess trees back into the field. After collecting fresh onions from the field, the tractor sends the fresh onions directly to the truck via a conveyor belt. Drivers drive the tractor and truck side by side for this process. After collecting the onions from the field, they transport them to a factory. Onions are unloaded from the truck via a conveyor belt. Workers keep checking the unloading process to avoid any interruption. After unloading the onions onto the conveyor belt, the belt sends the onions to a vibrating machine. There are lots of size pallets for onions. A worker sets the size of pallets on demand. The size pallets do two different things. First, it separates extra specks of dust and small rocks from the onions, and then sort the onions by size. The machine keeps shaking the onions until it's sorted by size, and the extra dust and small rocks are removed. This is what the big and small sizes look like. Some companies also use advanced technology to filter the onions into different sizes. They put onions through separate lines, and they put them through tunnels. There are lasers that scan the onions and send the pieces of information to computers. A worker always keeps track of the information. Then, the computer gives instructions to the conveyor belt, which separates onions by their size. Here is an example of the next process. They put the onions one by one into the cutting and peeling machine. First, make the onions with the point straight up and the root pointing down to prepare them for cutting. They rotate the slicing machine on top and bottom of the onions to cut them precisely. After cutting the tips and roots of the onions, the rotating machine rotates and the air pressure blows the skin off. Here is what it looks like after cutting and peeling the skin of an onion. After cutting and peeling the skin of the onions, they need to wash it. After washing the onions, they send them to a long conveyor belt, which sends them to the workers, where workers cut the extra skin off the onions and select the best ones. After selecting the onions, they make a batch of them and weigh them. Then, they put the batch of onions into the grinder. The grinder grinds the onions into small, fine pieces. After cutting the onions into pieces, another wash is done to remove the dirt from the onion pieces. Now these onion slices go to another weighing machine via a long conveyor belt to be weighed at a specific amount for packaging. The peeled skin from the onions will go through a different conveyor belt and be sent to a container to be thrown out. Before we get to the packaging, we want to show you more amazing factory machines that might surprise you. Buckle up for the next machine process. I think you might enjoy it. In this process, there are conveyor belts that take the onions to a mechanical hand that takes the onions one by one and takes the onions to 4 air blowers that blow air over the onions. The air pressure removes the skin from the onion. In this process, the worker unloads onions from a plastic bag into a machine. Workers then place the onions directly into the slicing machine. This machine puts onions on a horizontal blade and cuts the tips and roots of the onion. To peel the onion skin, 2 separate sharp blades curve the onion skin one by one. After cutting the tips and roots of the onions, they put the onions into a rotary peeler, which is rotated by a chain. After putting the onions into the roller machine, the machine rotates the onions very fast, and the skin of the onion falls off. Now, they take the peeled onions for further processing. Here is another machine that cuts off the tips and roots with a sharp blade and spins a sharp blade around the onions to remove the skin. This is another way they process onions in a factory. A conveyor belt transports the onions into the cutting machine, where a worker positions the onions perfectly to be cut. The slicing machine cuts off the tips and roots of the onions and throws them onto a conveyor belt, where workers cut the skin off the onions with a sharp knife. After chopping the onions into small pieces, they place the pieces on a conveyor belt, which takes them to the packaging area. The large rolls of plastic packages are taken out to bag the chopped onion in them. After weighing the sliced onions, they place them in plastic packets. The machine seals the plastic bag with heat. Then they put the plastic bags onto a conveyor belt for further packaging. There are many other ways to pack the sliced up onions, like in a plastic box. They pack them in a larger cardboard box. Another worker packs the onions in a polythene bag. Some customers want 20 to 30 kilograms of onions, which they pack in nylon bags. They then place the nylon bags in a large warehouse to be transported around the world. This is how onions are harvested, cut, peeled, and ground in a factory. Thank you for taking this.